You've allowed yourself to be in a very bad position, and he happens to be right about it.
From the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a good position. You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
So you hear the president's takeaway from Friday's meeting between President Vladimir Zelensky of Ukraine and President Trump. The Ukrainian president playing with fire, gambling with World War III, that according to Trump. Their meeting was supposed to be a day filled with peace talks, possibly, again, signing this economic deal dealing with rare earth minerals that was already on the table, already negotiated, but it ended up being a display of Zelensky's unwillingness to gain peace. The Ukrainian president's unprecedented behavior leading to his removal from the White House, and President Trump now in this White House seeking an apology.
Now, Russia and Ukraine, they've been at war for 3 years. President Trump has said that he wants people to stop dying. He has vowed to put an end to this war, but he says that Zelensky's attitude leaves the U.S. aid to end the war up in the air. Yuriy Sak is advisor to the Minister of Strategic Industries of Ukraine. Sir, thank you so much for coming on. I want to discuss kind of what happened in the Oval Office on Friday. I think from an American's perspective, which I am an American, there was supposed to be a lot of talks first to the public, but also in private. And I think it was quite offensive the way that Zelensky came in and tried to make the private talks suddenly public. And I think that's what first started to rub our president and vice president the wrong way. I'm wondering your thoughts on Zelensky's behavior from Friday. Do you think that President Trump reacted appropriately? Do you hope that he goes back to the White House? Your thoughts overall?
Christina, thank you so much for having me. And I would like to start by saying that I was personally a guest in your studio on a number of occasions before, and every single time I was there, I felt like I was amidst family. So I just want to tell you that when we Ukrainians, when we watched what happened in the Oval Office, it almost felt like, like an argument in a family, because there is not one Ukrainian, from our president to an ordinary teacher at school, who doesn't appreciate sincerely the support that we have been receiving from your country, from your people, from your president, from your Congress. Now, we know very well that if it wasn't for the support of the American people, Congress and president, the situation, our situation, would have been much, much more difficult. But looking back at what happened at the Oval Office, it was very unexpected for all of us. And when we saw how this meeting started and how it progressed, of course, it was a feeling of disbelief, and it was very, very uncomfortable to watch. And it's a very sad thing that it actually had to happen that way. But at the same time, we all have to understand, when our president is at a meeting like that, which is that important to the whole of Ukraine, Europe, and world, he's watched by millions of Ukrainians, by those millions who are in peaceful cities, relatively peaceful, because every day we are targeted by Russian missiles and Iranian drones. Millions of Ukrainian refugees who are currently forced to live in Europe, for example, because of the war, and hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian soldiers. So when our president heard things with which he disagreed and we disagreed, it wouldn't have been right for him to just sit quietly and be lectured. So it is very sad that it's happened this way, and we've said it since that meeting, and our president said it, that we will do everything in our power to fix this situation, and because the U.S. continues to be a strategic, a very important partner for Ukraine, and we are, our president actually said, we've counted, he said almost 100 times, he said thank you to the American people for the bipartisan support, and to the President Trump as well, because we agree that it was President Trump who gave us javelins. It is President Trump who wants to end the war. And guess what? Every weekend, for example, when Ukrainians go to church, there is only one thing on our mind and only one thing we are praying for. We're praying for peace. So there is no other nation on this planet that wants peace to end. But we have been living with Russia side to side for centuries. We know that they cannot be trusted. This is why signing a ceasefire without any guarantees is a suicidal mission for us. Because we know, and it's been said so many times.
Well, let me just jump in really quick because you mentioned security. We're limited on time. That's the only reason why I'm jumping in, so I apologize. But you mentioned you need securities, and that's where things shifted in the Oval Office. President Zelensky wanting security guarantees, things that were not in that economic deal dealing with rare earth minerals, and bringing that up there in front of the media, in front of the president, when this is already a done deal. The papers were out, ready to be signed, and doing it in that moment. Ukraine, as you well know, at this moment, not a member state of NATO. In security deals, that's a guaranteed security. Is that what you're asking from the United States, and to what end?
Sean, actually, it is very, very difficult to explain what exactly happened, because that critical minerals deal was worked on by the working groups on both sides. So both sides knew what they were going to sign. And actually, both sides also agreed that this framework deal on critical minerals was going to become just the first stage in building a wider architecture for the negotiating process that will ultimately lead to ending the war. So it is very difficult to explain why this issue came up at all, because I think the day before that, President Trump said that he doesn't mind that if the European countries, for example, deploy their contingent in Ukraine. We said that, for example, for us, when it comes to the US, of course, there are things that are irreplaceable, like, for example, the Patriot systems and missiles for them. If we don't get these missiles, our cities will be pulverized again by the Russians. Just today, Sean, 3 hours ago, Russians have targeted one of our military training bases with a ballistic missile, killing 39 young Ukrainian soldiers and injuring 90 more. And Ukrainian peaceful cities are targeted every night. So when we talk about security guarantees, we are not asking for the American boots on the ground. We never did. We just want America to continue to be our partner and to provide us on a fair and mutually beneficial basis, to provide us the security guarantees which it can.
So after that meeting, Zelensky said that he was actually ready to resign, give up his leadership in exchange for peace in Ukraine, or Kyiv becoming a member of NATO. What do you make of these statements? Do you think he will actually resign? Is that what it'll take to end this war?
We all in Ukraine, and actually beyond as well, we are confident that even if our membership in NATO is not something that can be included in this negotiating process, we know for a fact that Ukraine's membership in NATO in the long term is the only meaningful security guarantee that will work. Now, we understand that it's not achievable and not feasible at this stage. So when our president actually says that he will be ready to give up his position, his post, in exchange for NATO membership, it's his way of saying and stressing and highlighting how important it is for Ukraine to, at some point in the future, become a member of this defense alliance. Because we were attacked exactly because we were not part of this alliance.
Yeah, but there's a lot of talk, obviously, in politically parallel to this story. But the fact that there obviously are no elections happening right now, Zelensky remains in office throughout this war. Your thoughts on the Ukrainian people 3 years later watching this war continue to play out, sending conscripts, obviously, to the front lines? Is there still support for President Zelensky by the Ukrainian people? Seeing this exchange with President Trump, obviously, there seems to be a little bit of a shift. Where are the mindsets of the Ukrainian people today on Zelensky?
Don, we are all for 3 years now in a survival mode. We are all very extremely tired. We have all lost our friends, relatives. There are broken up families. There are little kids that will never be able to hug their parents because their parents have given life for our country and defending freedom. But at the same time, 3 years down the line, we're still highly motivated because we want to survive. We know, and I will just repeat, and this is something that's been said before, if Russia stops fighting, the war will end. If Ukraine will stop fighting, there will be no Ukraine, because we know very well the real motives of the Russians. This is why we have to be really careful going forward in this negotiating process. But Ukrainian people are firmly behind our president, and due to our constitution, elections indeed are not possible during the time of war. But look, we are a democratic country. We are fighting for freedom and democracy. Trust me, we will not allow anyone, not Zelensky, not anybody else, to usurp power. And that's not his objective. As soon as we achieve peace and it is possible to hold elections, we will have them. But for now, we are where we are. The war is raging on. People are being killed every day. We are actually building up our own defense industry base. We have deep strike capability to destroy Russian oil capacity inside Russia. We are still in Kursk. We are becoming the world's defense tech valley, to be honest. So it's, it's very tough. But we are still resilient, and we hope. One thing, Sean, I would like to stress very much.
Sure.
The only thing that Kremlin is afraid of is if the Western unity collapses, if it breaks up. So, we will now pray in our churches for peace. Plus, we will pray for unity of the transatlantic coalition, because that is the key to our survival, and that is the key to the survival of, the coalition of three nations.
All right, Yuriy Sak joining us. We do appreciate that. Thank you so much. A great conversation with you. We'll have you back.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Christina.
And President Trump announcing the U.S.